What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since 2003 and starting to get very optimistic about this Pistons team. The Detroit Pistons took care of business last night against the Dallas Mavericks, winning the game 117 to 102. In this video, we are going to go through, highlight some of the key performances from last night, and just talk about the game in general and the Pistons' whole situation moving forward. So the first player that we have to highlight is, of course, Cade Cunningham. He had a 40 ball last night, ties his season high, 17 of 30 from the field, good for 40 points with only 3 free throw attempts. Also chipped in 6 boards and 4 assists. Pretty low on the turnovers at only 3, but in reality, all you really need to know is Cade was finding a way to get buckets. The Mavericks, that is, did not do a very good job of sending bodies at Cade over the past couple weeks, months, and realistically the whole year. Teams have really tried to contain Cade by sending 2 when he has the ball, double teaming him, helping when he does penetrate, and all of that type of stuff. And the Mavs really kind of let less than great defenders try and just take Cade one-on-one, and it did not work at all, and I don't think that will work for many teams going forward. I'm not really sure what their mindset was on that, because it's not like the Mavericks have a ton of great perimeter defenders that you think would even have a chance against Cade one-on-one, but that's what they did, and they paid for it. So when I noticed that the Mavs were starting to play Cade that way, just letting him get guarded one-on-one, I figured that he would have a high-scoring game. Wasn't sure if he would get to 40, but by the end of the game, that is where he finished. So a great game for Cade, and pretty much looking like the all-star that he is. So no complaints there. So moving on, the next guy that we do need to highlight is Jalen Duren. He finishes the night with 16 points, 13 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, on 6 of 8 shooting in 30 minutes. Also 4 of 5 from the free throw line, which is great to see. Kind of a subplot of the season is that Jalen Duren's free throw percentage has regressed from last year. Last year, he saw a big uptick in his second year on his free throw percentage. And this year, he was pretty much been right back down to where he was in his rookie season. So really happy to see him trending in the right direction in the free throw department. But realistically, he's trending in the right direction for his entire game right now. Jalen Duren has played the best basketball of the season for himself over the past month. I think that's pretty undeniable. He has been more active defensively. He has been more active on the offensive glass. He has always been a good lob threat for Cade to throw lobs to and finish dunks. Can finish put-back dunks, offensive rebounds, get it, go right back up. And I think Jalen Duren has just looked really, really good recently. Of course, Isaiah Stewart was suspended for this game, so had a hunch that he probably was going to play a couple extra minutes compared to the usual. And he did. He played 30 minutes when he typically averages somewhere around 25, and I thought that he did a great job. Right now, the Mavericks are without Derek Lively, one of their centers, but Daniel Gafford is still a quality center who he was able to more or less contain, and outside of that, I thought that he handled business in a great way. So super happy with how Jalen Duren has played, and definitely starting to feel more comfortable and confident about Jalen Duren long term. So moving on, the next guy that we do need to highlight is Tobias Harris. He finishes the game with a super efficient 17 points, 7 of 12 from the field. Also chipped in 3 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal, and 3 blocks. But the biggest takeaway there is Tobias getting 7 buckets, 7 field goals, and the better half of them were self-created opportunities where he caught the ball at the top of the key or at the elbow and pretty much made something out of nothing and went and got us a bucket. A couple of those buckets were in crucial points in the game, in the start of the fourth quarter when the game was still kind of there for the taking, and Tobias was able to just get the ball and go create a shot for himself, which is great to see because especially when Cade is on the bench, we do not have a ton of that on the roster, especially since Jaden Ivey has gone down. So at times, especially when Cade's on the bench, having a guy who can just go get himself a bucket out of thin air is super, super valuable. And Tobias Harris might not be a Carmelo Anthony level of player doing that, but when nights where he's clicking, like last night, it works just good enough for us to be able to get by. And that's exactly the bar that he met last night. So pretty happy with the game for Tobias Harris, scoring 17 points on 12 shots. We'll take that all day. But outside of that, I do want to quickly shout out Paul Reed and Marcus Sasser as well. Definitely didn't have good enough stat lines to compete with Tobias, Duren, or Cade for this actual listing here. But I do think that it's important to note Paul Reed being able to step up in the suspension of Isaiah Stewart and play 18 minutes and hold his own out there is super, super valuable. You look at the Mavericks, for instance, right? They had their third string center, who I really am not familiar with at all, Kyler Kelly, play 8 minutes because Daniel Gafford was the only center on the roster besides him for last night. And he did not look very good. I think that was literally his second NBA game ever. So no shade to him at all. Second game of the season anyways. I've never even heard of the dude. But you see him play. That's what most teams get out of their third string center. Paul Reed is definitely a couple tiers above that when it comes to impacting the game from a third string center. So the fact that we have a guy like Paul Reed who's able to step in when Isaiah Stewart gets suspended or Jalen Duren is in foul trouble is super valuable, because when Paul Reed gets into the game, it's not at all a hold your breath type of moment where you're worried about blowing a lead due to the fact that you have a third string center out there. You're actually pretty excited and confident because he can be a pretty electrifying defensive player who can create turnovers, cause havoc, and all types of stuff. So super happy with how Paul Reed last night. And same goes for Marcus Sasser. Played 20 minutes, even closed out the game until JB cleared the bench. But shout out to him because I know it's not easy right now. Playing 20 minutes some nights with Jaden Ivey being out, being the only other point guard on this team. And I think that he's done a great job of that, getting 10 points and a lot of good buckets that were tough ones in the paint, which isn't exactly his forte. So shout out to Sasser and Paul Reed. Definitely have been doing a great job over the course of the last month, both of them stepping up when necessary. So all in all, thought this was a great bounce back game to get us back to 500. The Dallas Mavericks are also right in that ballpark. They're 3 games over 500. So being able to beat a team like that is always a good sign. Of course, they are without Luka Doncic, but all in all, still a solid team and a solid win, because we're not going to get too many breaks heading into the All-Star break here. We do have to play the Chicago Bulls 3 times over the next 10 days, but outside of that, the last couple teams we've had on the schedule and a couple teams that we also have on the schedule coming up are pretty difficult. So being able to get a win against a team like the Dallas Mavericks is awesome to see. Also awesome to see Cade get a 40 points. First game as official NBA All-Star. Super, super proud of him and everything he has done. So really impressed with the game last night. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit worried about it going in because right now, before this game, we are 1 game under 500. Lost 2 in a row. Was just a little bit worried that things could go south. But every time that I have had that type of worry that things could go south, the Pistons all year long have bounced back and found a way to get this thing back on the right train track. So super, super impressed with this team and excited to see what they can do Sunday against the Bulls. I'll catch up with you soon.